Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are plunging into a really compelling and, well, pretty intense narrative from the past, Judges chapter 11.
Yes, it is.
Our mission basically is to unpack the key events, the fascinating, complex characters, and the big implications in this specific text.
Intense is definitely the right word. The book of Judges, it covers that period of Israelite history after they've entered the land. It's often, well, unstable, lots of external threats, tricky internal stuff.
Right.
These are very human stories,
Mhm.
flawed people in tough spots. And chapter 11, yeah, our deep dive really centers on one main figure, Jephthah.
Okay, Jephthah. So let's unpack this guy. The text introduces him right away as a mighty warrior,
Yeah.
fairly capable, strong.
Mm-hmm.
But the very next detail is kind of striking, sets him apart immediately. His father was Gilead, a prominent man, sure, but his mother was a prostitute. That's not the usual background for a leader back then.
No, it immediately flags him as sort of being on the edge. He has the lineage, yes, from his father, but his mother's identity creates this, well, legitimacy problem within that whole patriarchal tribal setup.
Yeah.
So when Gilead's other sons, the ones born to his actual wife, grow up, they confront Jephthah head on.
And they don't mince words, do they? Pretty harsh. They basically say, you are not going to get any inheritance in our family because you are the son of another woman.
Ouch.
It's not just about, like, splitting the flocks or land. It's fundamental. Identity, belonging, inheritance. It's all tied up together.
Precisely. And this conflict, well, it leads straight to his exile, effectively. The text says Jephthah fled from his brothers and settled in the land of Tob.
But he doesn't just vanish, right? The next bit says, a group of adventurers gathered around him and followed him.
Right. He's not just hiding. He's building something different, his own network.
That phrase, group of adventurers, it feels important. Sounds like maybe guys who are also outside the normal system, maybe lost their land or just looking for action.
That seems plausible. So Jephthah, rejected by his family, his community, he uses his skills. He's a warrior and his maybe charisma, and he creates his own power base. A loyal crew outside the official Gileadite leadership.
An unconventional leader, then, operating outside the norms.
Exactly. A skilled fighter definitely felt the sting of injustice and probably attractive to others living on the fringes. He becomes a leader, yeah, but not in the standard way.
And that whole setup becomes absolutely crucial when, wouldn't you know it, a major crisis hits Gilead, forces them to confront the very guy they threw out.
That's it. An external threat comes up, the Ammonites. They declare war on Israel, and this isn't just some border raid. It's a serious military challenge for the people of Gilead.
Things get bad enough that the usual leaders, the elders of Gilead, they realize they're desperate.
Right. And the irony, oh, it's thick, isn't it? They literally have to go cap in hand almost to the man they banished.
Yeah, the text says, the elders of Gilead went to get Jephthah from the land of Tob. You can almost picture that journey, the swallowing of pride.
It's a powerful moment, really shows how need can just bulldoze past grievances, social rules, whatever.
And Jephthah, understandably, doesn't just say, sure, glad to help, does he?
No. He gives it to them straight. His response is sharp, cuts right to their hypocrisy. Didn't you hate me and drive me from my father's house? Why do you come to me now when you're in trouble?
Oof. Yeah, he makes them face it. Their past actions, their current desperation.
But they clearly know what's at stake. Their offer is huge. Nevertheless, we are turning to you now. Come with us and fight, and you will be our head over all who live in Gilead.
Wow. Not just military commander, but head total political leader. That's a big offer.
It is. But Jephthah, well, he's been burned by them. He needs more than just a promise for the duration of the war, right?
He needs guarantees.
Exactly. He pushes back. Suppose you take me back, and the Lord gives them to me. Will I really be your head? He wants this leadership locked in, permanent if he wins. It shows he's thinking strategically. Maybe wants vindication, lasting status after being rejected.
Makes sense. And they agree.
They do. They swear a solemn oath, calling on God as witness. The Lord is our witness. We will certainly do as you say.
So they elevate it, make it a covenant before God, not just a political deal.
Which is crucial in that context. It adds weight, divine oversight, makes their commitment feel more solid.
So the deal is struck. Jephthah goes with them. They gather the people at Mizpah, make him head and commander officially. And it notes he repeats his terms, before the Lord in Mizpah.
Yeah, that public religious affirmation, it seals it. He's gone from outcast to leader, acknowledged by the people and seemingly by God.
Incredible journey for him personally. But The Ammonites are still there, right?
Yeah.
The immediate problem needs fixing.
The war is still on.
And Jephthah's first move, it's not straight to battle plans. He tries talking. Diplomacy.
He sends messengers to the Ammonite king, asks a direct question. What do you have against us that you have attacked our country? Basically, why are we fighting?
Trying to understand the cause before escalating.
And the Ammonite king lays it out. Their justification, their side of it. He says, Israel took my land when they came up out of Egypt from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now give it back peaceably.
Ah, so it's a land dispute, historical claim. They're saying Israel stole this territory centuries ago.
That's their case for war.
Now here's where it gets really, really detailed. Jephthah doesn't just say, nuh-uh. He sends back messengers with this incredibly thorough counter-argument. It's like a historical and theological case file.
Yeah, he basically builds a legal brief arguing why their claim is, from Israel's viewpoint, totally wrong. He just dismantles their premise step by step.
Okay, walk us through it. How does he start?
He starts by clarifying Israel's route out of Egypt, states very clearly, Israel did not take land belonging to Moab or land belonging to the Ammonites.
So point one, wrong people, wrong land initially.
Right. He says they traveled through the desert, deliberately went around Edom and Moab, camped on the far side of the Arnon River, which was Moab's border. He even points out they asked permission to pass through Edom and Moab, but got refused.
Okay, so no trespassing on their turf during that journey.
Then, he continues, they passed along the eastern edge of Moab, camped across the Arnon. Then they sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, different group who ruled from Heshbon, asked permission to pass through his land.
Sihon said.
Sihon said no, didn't trust them, got his army together, attacked Israel at a place called Jahaz, and this, Jephthah argues, is the key moment, because the text says, then the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and his whole army into Israel's hands, and they defeated them.
So the battle was against the Amorites, initiated by them.
And the result, Jephthah says, was Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites in that area, Arnon to Jabbok, desert to Jordan. So his big point is, the land we took wasn't yours, Ammonites. It belonged to the Amorites, and we beat them fair and square after they attacked us.
Okay, that's a strong historical point. What else?
He doubles down on the divine angle. Now since the Lord, the God of Israel, has driven the Amorites out before his people Israel, what right have you, the Ammonites, to take it over? He's saying God gave Israel this land by defeating the previous owners. Trying to take it back is like arguing with God's actions.
That's a powerful claim in that context.
He even kind of flips their own logic back on them. He asks, will you not take what your god Shemosh gives you? Likewise, whatever the Lord our God has given us, we will possess. It's like saying, you operate based on your God giving you land. Well, our God gave us this land. Our claim is just as valid by your own standards.
Wow, that's bold. Any other arguments?
Yep, a couple more. He brings up Balak, the king of Moab, back when Israel first came through, points out even Balak didn't fight Israel over this land. If Moab, who was right there, didn't claim it then, why are the Ammonites claiming it now, centuries later?
Good point. Undermines the urgency of their claim.
And maybe the most practical point, sheer time. He says Israel has lived in places like Heshbon and Aroer for, get this, 300 years. He explicitly asks, why didn't you retake them during that time?
Right. If it was really yours, why wait 300 years? Long-term occupation strengthens Israel's claim. Possession is 9/10.
Pretty much. He wraps it all up saying Israel hasn't wronged Ammon, but Ammon is wronging Israel by attacking. And then he appeals to the Lord, the judge, to decide the dispute. He's laid out his case, history, God's action, precedent, long possession.
An incredibly thorough response.
Yeah.
So after all that careful reasoning, what does the Ammonite king do?
The text just says, starkly. The king of Ammon, however, paid no attention to the message Jephthah sent him.
Just ignored it.
Completely. All that effort, all that logic, just dismissed.
So talking's over. Diplomacy failed. It's war.
It's war. And right at this point, the narrative shifts again, a critical moment. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah.
Okay, what does that signify here?
It's a recurring theme in Judges. It usually means divine empowerment for a specific task, often leading in battle. It confirms Jephthah, this former outcast, is now God's chosen instrument for this fight. He's enabled.
Got it. So empowered by the Spirit, Jephthah gets ready, crosses through Gilead and Manasseh, moves from Mizpah to confront the Ammonites. But right before the battle, he does something else, something that will have huge consequences.
He makes a vow. to the Lord, a very specific and, well, as it turns out, a potentially devastating vow.
What does he promise?
He says, "If you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering."
Whoa. Whatever comes out of the door, that sounds incredibly risky, wide open.
It is. It could be an animal, maybe a prize sheep or something, which was normal for sacrifices, but
Right.
it could be a person. And that phrase, sacrifice it as a burnt offering, well, typically for animals, makes the possibility utterly horrifying if it applies to a human.
It feels like a desperate gamble, maybe,
Yeah.
made under extreme pressure, tying victory to this unknown, potentially awful personal price.
It definitely ramps up the tension. He wants divine assurance, and he's offering this dramatic, maybe rash payment in return. So the battle happens, and the text is clear. The Lord gave them into his hands.
Victory.
Decisive victory. Jephthah leads Israel. They crush the Ammonites, devastate 20 towns, subdue them completely.
So militarily, mission accomplished. He delivered Gilead, just like he promised,
Yeah.
validated his leadership.
The land is safe, the enemy is beaten, but that vow is hanging there, and the cost comes due the moment he gets home to Mizpah.
Don't tell me.
Who comes out of his house to greet him, celebrating his victory. The text is just heart-wrenching. His daughter, dancing, playing tamarines.
Oh, no.
And then the text twists the knife. She was an only child. Except for her, he had neither son nor daughter. His only heir, his entire future lineage.
Oh, that's brutal. Public triumph meets private disaster. What does Jephthah do?
He sees her, instantly understands the vow's implication, and just breaks. He tears his clothes, the classic sign of extreme grief, and cries out, "Oh, my daughter, you have made me miserable and wretched because I have made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break."
The weight of that promise just crushes him. He feels trapped by it.
Completely. He believes he has to follow through because the vow was made to God, and God granted the victory tied to it.
Okay, but what about the daughter? How does she react? This is unimaginable.
Her response is, well, it's remarkable and complex. She doesn't scream or argue. She accepts it. Tells him, "My father, duty me just as you promised, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites."
She connects the vow, the victory, and her own fate. That's a lot to process.
It is. She seems to recognize that the victory came because of the vow, and she's the price. But she does have one request before it happens.
What does she ask for?
She asks for 2 months. "Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends because I will never marry."
Okay, wait. She wants to weep specifically because I will never marry. That seems really significant.
It really does. It strongly points towards the nature of how the vow was fulfilled. It seems the primary tragedy from her perspective, and maybe the text's, was the loss of her future marriage, children, continuing the family line.
And the text also repeats, right after saying he fulfilled the vow and she was a virgin.
Exactly. So while that phrase burnt offering is jarring and could imply literal sacrifice, and some interpret it that way, the heavy emphasis on her mourning, her inability to marry, her virgin status, the importance of lineage, it leads many to think the vow meant lifelong dedication to God's service, perhaps at the sanctuary, which precluded marriage, ending Jephthah's line just as surely in that cultural context.
Still tragic, but perhaps different from literal immolation. The text leaves it a bit ambiguous, though.
It does leave some room for debate, but the details about mourning virginity lean heavily towards the loss of marriage and family life as the core tragedy being described. Either way, it's the end of her expected life path.
So Jephthah grants her the 2 months. She goes off with their friends.
Mourns her fate in the hills, and after the 2 months, she comes back, and the text just says starkly, "He did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin."
The vow fulfilled. The tragic cost paid.
For both of them, really, and for his lineage.
And the chapter ends by noting this whole event had a lasting impact, didn't it?
That's
It started a custom.
Yeah, it says that each year the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite.
So her story wasn't forgotten. It became part of their tradition, their collective memory.
Shows how deeply it resonated, a communal remembrance, maybe mourning her loss, maybe reflecting on vows, maybe just processing this really difficult part of their past.
Wow. Okay, that was quite the journey through Judges 11.
Mm-hmm.
We saw, well, the rise of this unlikely leader, forged in exile, navigated that high-stakes negotiation driven by pure desperation.
Right.
Dug into that fascinating historical and theological land claim.
Yeah, the back and forth diplomacy.
witnessed a divinely empowered victory, and then just slammed into the devastating personal cost of that vow.
It's packed, isn't it? Drama, complex people, really challenging themes. Jephthah's whole arc, outcast to leader, his sharp mind in the diplomacy, his reliance on God, and then that tragic, maybe misguided vow. It paints a picture of someone flawed, but, well, significant.
Definitely flawed.
And the story just forces you to wrestle with things like the weight of promises, the clash between public duty and private suffering, and how communities remember and deal with traumatic events.
It really does make you think about how life takes unexpected turns, the tough choices people make under pressure, the power of desperation, ambition, and maybe how we interpret these ancient texts with really difficult, ambiguous parts, like the exact nature of that vow.
So, what does this story challenge you, the listener, to think about? Maybe consider all those layers: duty, fate, choice, woven through this chapter. Jephthah's vow, his daughter's incredible acceptance, the community remembering it every year. What does their story suggest about how societies, maybe even ours now, grapple with difficult histories and the promises made within them?